Some storms don't arrive to destroy you, my friends. They arrive to wake you up. Let that stay with you for a moment. Maybe you've been asking yourself, why hasn't it happened for me yet? You've done everything people told you to do, haven't you? You tried to be kind without seeming too available, warm without giving too much. You smiled without looking desperate. You dressed to be noticed, but secretly hoped someone would truly see your heart. You held back. You waited. You shared your body carefully. Or maybe you didn't. Maybe you gave it because you believed this time it would finally become something real. Yet somehow you were still overlooked, unseen, like a beautiful melody playing with the volume turned down while everyone danced to empty noise. And now you quietly ask yourself, am I too much? Too deep? Too gentle? Too late? What is wrong with me? Let me tell you something clearly. Nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not falling behind. You are simply living through a season that almost nobody talks about. It is the season where the body grows still because the soul is preparing to speak. Most people think silence means failure. They'll say, she's lonely, she's stuck, she must be giving off the wrong energy. But what if that silence isn't rejection at all? What if it's direction? What if your soul is softly saying, not yet, not this person, not in this way. Stay with me because this changes everything. The world sold you a shortcut instead of the truth. Be prettier, stay relaxed, flirt but don't care too much, be attractive but never too serious. They promised that if you followed the rules, love would eventually find your door. But they forgot to tell you that real love never enters a place that hasn't fully opened from within first. Think about a garden during winter. Everything looks lifeless. The trees stand empty. The ground feels frozen. Yet beneath that cold surface, something powerful is happening. Roots are growing stronger. Seeds are quietly waiting for the perfect season. That is where you are. You are not empty. You are preparing. You are not falling behind. You are building strength where nobody else can see it. And believe it or not, that hidden season makes people uncomfortable because a woman who refuses to chase, refuses to beg, refuses to throw herself into shallow places just to feel noticed becomes unforgettable. Not because she has become distant, but because she has finally learned to protect her own fire instead of handing out the spark to everyone who asks. So if you're living through a season where you're protecting your body, where you're not rushing into relationships, where nobody seems to be choosing you, don't mistake it for punishment. See it as preparation. The woman who learns to stand peacefully in silence becomes impossible to ignore when her time finally arrives. You don't need someone else's choice to prove your value. You don't need another message to remind you that you matter. You need to hear your own voice again. That only happens when the noise fades and you stop filling every quiet moment with someone else's approval. Don't click away because what comes next matters even more. We're not talking about tricks or attraction games. We're talking about waking up to the person you've always been. If this message is already reaching your heart, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Not only to support this space, but to make a promise to the version of yourself that is finally beginning to rise. You are not behind. You're standing at the beginning. And every powerful story begins exactly there. The feeling of being invisible hurts more than most people admit. A diamond doesn't shine because it wants attention. It shines because it survived pressure that would have broken almost anything else. Let that sink in. If you've ever felt invisible, this part is for you. You've walked into rooms where nobody truly noticed your presence. You've shared pictures that disappeared without attention. You've watched other people fall in love while pretending it didn't hurt to always be the one waiting. You worked on your appearance. You worked on your heart. You healed old wounds. You improved your mindset, protected your peace, strengthened your boundaries. You followed the advice from books, podcasts, friends, and family. Still, somehow, people continue to overlook you. After enough disappointment, the questions begin to grow louder inside your own mind. Is it me? Am I not attractive enough? Maybe love simply isn't meant for someone like me. But here's something very few people will ever tell you. You were never created to become background noise in someone else's story. You are the song that people can only appreciate once they've grown enough to understand what real depth sounds like. Imagine a lighthouse standing in the middle of a violent storm. It doesn't stop shining because boats sail past without stopping. It doesn't switch off because nobody arrived today. It keeps doing what it was built to do. It shines because its purpose isn't chasing ships. Its purpose is guiding the ones that are finally ready. That's why feeling invisible doesn't mean you're not enough. It often means you were never meant to live in shallow places. You were created for depth, for honesty, for real connection. Many people aren't ready to meet someone who no longer begs to be noticed because she has finally learned how to notice herself. Maybe a part of you is still whispering, but what if nobody ever chooses me? What if being strong means I'll always end up alone? What if I already missed my chance? No, my friend, you didn't miss anything. You simply grew beyond the kind of love that would have found the old version of you. You are not invisible. You are valuable in ways that cannot be rushed. Things that truly matter are never revealed before the right time. You are not late. You are being shaped. You are not unwanted. You are being protected until what belongs to you can finally recognize you. And if this season of being overlooked feels this meaningful, imagine what happens when the people who truly belong in your life finally see you. Stay with me, because the next part may completely change how you see yourself. We're about to explore what happens when you stop performing just to earn connection and finally begin listening to the quiet voice that has been guiding you all along. One day, everything starts changing in ways you never expected. You don't explode. You don't post emotional messages hoping someone notices. You don't even cry the way you once did. Instead, something inside you quietly settles. You step back, not because you're bitter, but because you've become clear. You stop answering late-night messages from people who never really cared to know you. You stop questioning every outfit, every text, every little detail about yourself. You stop forcing chemistry with people who only meet you halfway. Slowly, your whole world begins to shift. Others notice it before you do. They ask if you're okay. They wonder why you don't go out as much anymore. They tell you that you should put yourself back out there. What they often mean is that your quiet confidence makes them uncomfortable because you are no longer performing the role they expected from you. But they don't understand what really happened. This wasn't some clever strategy. Your soul simply took control. Your whole being finally decided there would be no more auditions. No more exhausting performances for tiny pieces of attention. The deepest kind of change begins the moment you stop searching outside yourself and start paying attention to what has always been waiting within. That is where real awakening begins. The truth is, you didn't stop believing in love. You simply stopped accepting less than the love your heart has always deserved. And trust me, what comes next is something you won't want to miss. You didn't stop trying. You simply stopped bending yourself into shapes that were never meant for you. You walked away, not to disappear, but to finally hear your own voice. Yes, some days it feels lonely. You'll scroll through pictures of people who seem happy, who look like they've moved on with ease. You'll wonder if being chosen is still the goal and whether everyone else is somehow winning while you're standing still. But listen carefully, there is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You are breaking a pattern that has been repeating for far too long. The cycle ends with you. You're no longer depending on other people to prove your value. You're learning what it feels like to value yourself even when nobody is cheering. And that kind of confidence unsettles people because someone who doesn't rely on constant approval begins making real decisions instead of emotional reactions. They stop chasing attention. They start protecting peace. Stay with me, because this next part goes even deeper. We're entering a place where the silence becomes stronger, and there you meet a version of yourself that no relationship could ever create. Don't skip this, because what you discover there can change everything. The hardest mirror you'll ever stand in front of isn't hanging on your bedroom wall. It's the one that appears in complete silence when nobody else is around. Let that settle for a moment, because once the noise fades, the messages slow down, the attention disappears, and every distraction loses its grip, another voice begins to speak. It isn't always gentle. It's the voice that wakes you in the middle of the night asking, why didn't they choose me? What did someone else have that I didn't? Was I too much or somehow never enough? Those questions replay old conversations, unanswered messages, and memories of the times you gave away pieces of yourself, hoping someone would finally see your worth. Now, there is no audience left to impress. There is only you and the truth. Here's what most people never explain. That voice isn't there to punish you. It's trying to wake you up. It isn't weakness rising to the surface. It's the hidden part of you asking to be heard. The part that stayed quiet while you learned to seem easygoing, attractive, low maintenance, and unaffected. That part isn't lost. It's finally returning home. The pieces of yourself you buried just to fit into someone else's expectations are beginning to rise again. The side of you that was called too emotional, too honest, too passionate, or too much isn't your enemy. It may actually be your greatest guide. It remembers what you truly wanted before you settled for less. I won't pretend this part is comfortable. It isn't, because once you stop blaming other people for overlooking you, you have to face the moments when you handed away your own worth hoping someone else would protect it. That's painful. But don't run from it. This is where real transformation begins, not during a perfect date, not inside another conversation. It begins right here in the quiet, with nothing left except your honesty. Maybe you're wondering, if I go this deep, will I come back the same? The answer is no. And that's exactly the point. You're not meant to return as the same person. You're meant to return stronger, clearer, and more connected to yourself than ever before. Keep watching, because what comes next reaches a place almost everyone has felt, but very few are willing to admit. It explores the moments when loneliness becomes so powerful that even the wrong kind of love begins to look tempting again. Here's where it gets real. Sometimes you don't miss the person. You miss the version of yourself who felt wanted, even if that feeling wasn't real. Let those words sink in, because they touch something deep inside almost everyone. We all say we want genuine love, yet there are moments when we secretly miss the imitation. We miss the late-night messages from someone who never truly cared about our heart, but still made the phone light up. We miss the flirting that never led anywhere because for a few minutes it made us feel noticed. We miss the almost relationship that offered just enough hope to keep us waiting, but never enough security to let us rest. Then the silence arrives. Slowly, a different kind of hunger appears. You miss being touched, even by someone who only saw the surface. You miss hearing from someone, even if they only reached out when they were bored. You miss feeling chosen, even when you knew they were never planning to stay. Listen carefully. Missing the wrong kind of love doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Every heart longs for connection. When your heart has gone without real closeness for a long time, it stops thinking logically. It simply wants to feel seen again. But what you're really missing isn't that person. You're missing the feeling they briefly created. You're missing the illusion that you were finally enough. That ache isn't simply loneliness. It's the discomfort of letting go of something familiar. The truth is, you don't want them back. You want yourself back. You want the version of you who didn't spend hours analyzing messages. The version who didn't shrink herself just to keep someone's attention. The version who didn't carry the weight of confusion every single day. That hunger isn't calling for another relationship. It's calling you home to yourself. Once you truly experience your own value, you stop settling for tiny pieces of affection, pretending to be love. You stop chasing almosts. You begin preparing for something steady, something honest, something that meets you instead of draining you. Don't leave yet, because the next step is one of the most powerful parts of this journey. We're moving beyond hunger into something much stronger. There comes a season that many people mistake for emptiness, but it may actually be the season that teaches your roots to grow instead of forcing you to keep chasing temporary rain. Sit with that thought for a moment. What you're living through isn't simply a dry season. It is a quiet period that most people don't understand, don't celebrate, and rarely appreciate. You probably didn't choose it. You didn't wake up one morning deciding this would become your path. Life slowly placed you here through disappointment after disappointment, through messages that never came, through relationships that almost became real but never fully arrived. Now you find yourself alone more often than expected, wondering during quiet evenings whether this is strength or simply sadness wearing a different face. Be honest, this path has cost you something. It has cost you easy companionship. It has cost you nights when silence felt overwhelming. It has cost you endless questions from people who treat being single like something that needs fixing. It has cost you the temporary comfort of connections that could never truly last. But what if everything changed the moment you realized this wasn't punishment? What if it has been protection all along? The person you're becoming needed room to breathe. She needed stillness. She needed the constant noise to fade so her own wisdom could finally become louder. Yes, it has been quiet. But that quiet has been working for you in ways you couldn't see. You haven't only been waiting for love, you've been finding yourself. Every time you refused to return to someone who only loved half of you, every time you ignored a message that once would have pulled you backward, every time you protected your own boundaries instead of giving them away just to avoid another lonely night, you were doing something powerful. You weren't standing still, you were growing. You were making space for your heart to receive instead of endlessly giving. You were inviting your soul back into the center of your life. The world may never applaud this kind of strength, but one day you'll look back and thank yourself for every quiet choice that brought you here. Stay with me, because what comes next is where everything begins to change. The hunger starts becoming strength, and the silence begins turning into fire. Don't miss it. There comes a moment when the ache begins to transform into something completely different. This is where longing becomes strength. One day you realize you no longer chase warmth because you finally understand that the warmth has been inside you all along. Let that sink in, my friends, because this is the turning point where the entire journey starts making sense. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or a dramatic announcement. It happens quietly. One ordinary morning you wake up and notice something has changed. The heaviness isn't there anymore, not because you've buried your feelings, not because someone finally chose you, but because you stopped searching outside yourself for something that was always meant to grow within. What once felt like constant hunger, that endless need to feel wanted, admired, or called beautiful by someone who barely understood your heart, slowly fades away. You used to reread old conversations, hoping they might reach out one more time. Now you want something entirely different. You don't need to be chased. You want to be truly met. You don't need someone to make your life feel meaningful. You want someone who recognizes the life already shining inside you. This is what real growth feels like. The craving becomes wisdom. The attention you once fought for now feels like background noise. Instead of asking, do they want me? You begin asking, can they truly appreciate everything I carry? That's where the real transformation happens. Pain doesn't disappear, it becomes power. You didn't simply survive the silence, you allowed it to shape you. You didn't just spend time without love, you completely changed your understanding of what love actually is. Now you're no longer searching for excitement alone. You're looking for peace, honesty, and a connection that helps both people grow. The old version of you wanted attention. This version wants alignment. The old version needed constant proof. The new version has become the proof. If people tell you that you've changed, smile and thank them. They're right. You've changed from empty to fulfilled, from desperate to discerning. You no longer borrow warmth from other people because you've learned how to create it within yourself. Stay with me, because the next part may completely change the way you think about rejection. Don't miss this. Sometimes not being chosen isn't loss at all. Sometimes it's protection, leading you somewhere far greater than you can imagine. Let those words settle in your heart. This is where an old wound becomes one of your greatest strengths. For years, you questioned yourself. Why did they admire you but never truly pursue you? Why did they call you amazing only when it suited them? Why did they choose someone else who seemed easier, louder, or simply different from you? Now, let's look at that pain from another angle. Maybe you weren't overlooked because something was missing. Maybe you were overlooked because you were never meant to belong everywhere. Many people simply didn't know what to do with someone who refused to perform just to earn love. You weren't chosen, and perhaps that became one of the greatest gifts your life could have given you. Every moment that felt like rejection may actually have been redirecting you towards something healthier, deeper, and far more lasting. Every closed door quietly whispered, "Not here, not this small version of your life, keep going." You were never meant to become someone's backup plan. You weren't created just to be tolerated. You deserve to be fully recognized for who you are. Here's the part most people never expect. The person who learns how to stand tall after not being chosen becomes incredibly difficult to shake, not because they're distant or unavailable, but because they've become whole. Empty promises no longer attract them. Tiny pieces of affection no longer feel enough. They stop settling for almost. They walk with certainty instead. Some people may call that intimidating. In reality, they're simply witnessing someone who no longer asks permission to shine. Let me say it another way. You weren't passed over. You were being protected, prepared, and positioned for something that actually fits your life. When your moment arrives, it won't leave you guessing. It won't be hidden or one-sided. It will be clear, mutual, and steady. Stay with me because we're almost at the final step. This is where everything comes together. We aren't returning to life searching for love anymore. We're returning as people who have learned how to live from love itself. This is the moment you step back into the world completely different from the person who first began this journey. You're not returning because you need applause. You're returning with quiet confidence. The person who once felt invisible, who questioned every unanswered message and every uncertain connection, isn't waiting anymore. She walks forward carrying something she never had before. She isn't led by hunger. She isn't guided by emptiness. She moves with quiet fullness. Not the kind that needs to announce itself, but the kind people naturally notice without understanding why. She no longer searches for someone to complete her because she already knows she is complete. If love appears now, it meets someone who isn't asking, "Do you finally see me?" Instead, she's asking, "Can you walk beside the life I've already built?" That is what returning truly means. Not becoming the same person with better luck, but becoming someone who finally understands that being seen begins with seeing yourself. There is no more twisting yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. No more accepting crumbs and pretending they're enough. You fed yourself truth. You strengthened your roots during seasons of silence until you learned how to bloom whether anyone was watching or not. If love enters your life now, it isn't a reward for suffering. It isn't payment for waiting. It's simply two whole people choosing one another freely. That's the kind of love worth protecting. Some people will say you've changed. They're absolutely right. The person who walked through the loneliness of feeling unseen could never return unchanged. She no longer begs. She no longer chases. She chooses. She has found herself before asking anyone else to find her. When love finally arrives, she welcomes it with open eyes, steady hands, and a heart that no longer fears standing alone. So if this message spoke to something real inside you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you've ever felt unseen while believing deep down that you were becoming something rare. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a completely new chapter. If you've ever felt invisible, unheard, or unchosen, remember this: none of it was wasted. Every difficult season was preparing you for your return. You are not broken. You are becoming stronger. And when you rise from silence, you don't return searching for love. You return living it. If these words reached your heart, share them with someone who may need this reminder today. The world doesn't need more people pretending to be perfect. It needs more people willing to wake up, stand in their truth, and live from it every single day. Stay grounded, stay true to yourself, and don't miss what comes next.